And welcome to our monthly Activist San Diego general meeting this evening, which Rudy Reyes has coordinated and put together. But before we start the discussion and the presentation and the panel and an opportunity for many of you to say your piece this evening and to talk about this issue, we're going to have a few announcements, as well as Jim Moreno, who's going to share with us some of his spoken word and poetry. And we encourage all of you to not only join the discussion, but if you have events and other kinds of announcements, we'll leave some time at the end, certainly for people to share that with us. A little bit about Activist San Diego. We are a 14-year-old nonprofit organization. We call ourselves an information, communication, and mobilization hub. And for many years, focusing on peace and anti-war, human rights, civil rights issues, certainly issues of racial justice and discrimination in society. And as such, we were very, very moved and distraught by the verdict that came down yesterday in the Trayvon Martin case, one that profoundly speaks to the continuing racial profiling by the system itself of African Americans in particular, and peoples of color in general, and those who do not fit within the norms of the corporate system. And one of the things that we will perhaps discuss tonight is that one of the ways in which Trayvon Martin was basically stigmatized was by his association with marijuana. You know, to pass on an act which should be, all of us in this room believe, should be an open and legal form of sharing Mother Nature. But he was, in a sense, profiled for his use and therefore criminalized himself. One of the major projects right now, the major project of Activist San Diego, was the founding of new KNSJ 89.1 FM, your new community radio station. And all of us should take a bow, because this really has been a community effort to get this on. We raised $30,000. We're still $10,000 in debt, but we want you to jump in and be part of this, be a voice for the voiceless, to put on issues like this that no other place on the airwaves will there be an open and fair and challenging discussion about these kinds of issues. And this is one of many kinds of issues along this line. We have meetings on the first and third Thursdays of the month. So there will be a meeting this coming Thursday at the Activist Center in City Heights, which is at 4246 Whiteman Street. And we will be discussing a number of things, including, and I'm going to pass this to Leon, who is the board chairperson of Activist San Diego, and he's going to tell us about the fundraiser that is coming up, and then we'll put on Jim Moreno.
Thank you. Thanks for everybody coming. August 3rd, put it on your calendar. The fundraiser is more or less our launch party. That's originally how it was conceived. So we're still going to call it our launch party. We're launching, we'll have a full schedule by then. We'll have a lot of new and original programs, as well as the syndicated programs. We have two news programs, one for KNSJ and one for East County Magazine. So we actually have two newsrooms producing news, one focusing more on the East County, and then Mike Hancock is the voice of KNSJ in San Diego. So this is going to be very important for us to have a successful fundraiser at Mission Trails. If you've never been there, it's a world-class place. The regional park, Mission Trails Regional Park, is the largest regional park in California and probably the entire United States. A combination of city, county, and state land, all put together in where the Kumeyaay originated in San Diego, where the dam was built. And so, like I say, it's a world-class museum and cultural center. We're going to have a scavenger hunt inside of a museum. We're going to have beer and wine tasting. There's going to be hors d'oeuvres. We're going to have Kumeyaay fry bread from a fairly famous chef who's going to make that for us. And we're going to have Fixin' Sword if you want to make an Indian taco, or if you want to put, jelly on it or whatever you want. We're going to have all kinds of food. There's going to be the San Diego Native Flute Ensemble there. They'll be playing in the outdoor amphitheater, playing Native American flutes. Inside, we're going to have an award ceremony. And the award, who are we to give out an award, right? That it's going to be a symbolic golden microphone from KNSJ, Voice of the Voiceless. And we're going to give this to people as a symbolic representation of their access to the airways. So we're going to give it to people whose represents either an individual or an organization that represents the type of people we want to reach. Organizations like this, organizations that don't get a voice. And we're going to give them the golden mic. This is going to help us, for all you ASD people here, it's going to help us get sponsors, because we'll be able to talk to organizations that we want to partner with, and we'll be able to ask them to sell 10 tickets or whatever, and to work with us to make this a successful event. Our own Floyd Morrow was able to bring Bob Filner and Donna Fry and many others to our 4th of July party. And he has even bigger guests for our August 3rd. So I'll just tell you the initials, JB, perhaps. If that rings in.
He's a guest.
As a guest. As a guest.
And a barbecue.
It's not a barbecue, no. It's definitely not a barbecue. This is going to be a big event. So.
Are they local?
Pardon?
Are they local?
Yeah, Sacramento. Sacramento. Yeah, so
I don't think Filner and Fry are going to be together.
I don't know. We were thinking maybe we could have the victims of it. Have all
The aftermath.
yes. So we'll see what happens as we get closer. It's only 2-3 weeks away, but we'll see what happens. A lot can happen then. And so I want to encourage you all to come, and also to reach out to the groups that you guys are in and represent, and tell them about it, and ask them to make a commitment of maybe 10 tickets for the organization. If we can do that, our goal is to sell 200 tickets, which would be $4,000. We also need help getting raffle prizes and auction prizes and prizes for the scavenger hunt. There's going to be live music afterwards for dancing, indoors, acoustic music from 9 until 10. And it's going to be a blast. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I hope you can all be there, and hopefully you can all help. And now, I'll give it back to Martin.
So, did you want to make a quick announcement? And then we'll turn it over to Jim and start.
My name is Bill. I'm one of the volunteers for the KNSJ project, helping out with some of the technical aspects of the project. I'm also the organizer of the San Diego Debate Club. It's a monthly debate series. It's a liberal conservative debate format. This Friday, the 19th, we will be having a debate at the Thomas Jefferson School of Law. And the topic is, should undocumented immigrants be given amnesty? So we're going to have a yes and a no on both sides of that issue, and I'll pass out some flyers in case you have an interest in it.
Activist and poetic artist, Jim Moreno, the floor is yours.
Good evening. Before I read my poetry, I just wanted to say when I lived on Paula Reservation, I would hear the signal from KPFK in LA, and the right put a radio station in Tijuana that covered that signal up. So we have now with KNSJ, we've come out of the dark ages for our voices to be heard. So it's no longer corporate values that we'll be hearing. We'll be hearing our values on the radio. And so I hope that everyone will send some support from our hearts and from our wallets to keep this going. I don't think I need this. Do you need me to have this? This is called Gripping Thorns. This is for my oldest daughter, Jennifer. You say I'm not an American because I disagree with this fork-tongued, two bloodless election coups except for the innocents slaughtered in Haiti, Iraq, and Palestine. Small p president, capital B, capital S, Bush. But I say my dissent is when I'm most American, when I disagree, when we disagree with him. We are most American when we shout out in dissent, like Thomas Jefferson, like John Hancock. Shouting out, declaring freedom under threat of hanging be hanged. Shouting out like John Brown, deploring the suffering of slavery. Shouting out like Crazy Horse, bravely fighting the slaughter of his people, fighting the theft of his land by this same United States government who had him chained, then bayoneted in the back. His people hid his body, and no one knows where Crazy Horse is buried. Shouting out like Sojourner Truth, wishing she could have saved 1,000 more slaves, if only she could have convinced them they were slaves. Shouting out like Frederick Douglass, how the whip drew his blood in rivulets, then rivers, his screams notwithstanding. Shouting like Soldier of Freedom, Harriet Tubman, codename Moses. Whispered with hopes of the people, humming freedom songs to celebrate her iron will, insisting, demanding freedom, 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 freedom. Say click-clack, Underground Railroad track, shouting out like Rosa Parks that she was just too damn tired for any more of Jim Crow. That she would take a stand for little brother Emmett and keep her seat. Shouting out like Jane Fonda, exposing muffled cries of Vietnam's babies, echoing genocide in valleys of torture and death. Shouting out like Angela Davis, insisting on sweet freedom, echoing cries of outrage from the strange fruit pen of Ida Bell Wells. I say I am an American, echoing Dr. King's dissent, as a patriot with great love for my country. I say I am an American, echoing Dr. King's great sadness at ignorant, arrogant leaders who missed the mark framed by founding fathers at the Second Continental Congress. I say I am an American, and I know where Crazy Horse is buried. He's buried in the soul of the unions who fight for a living wage. He's buried in the strong hands of black brothers who built this country as slaves. He's buried in the strong backs of brown brothers and sisters who harvest the food to feed this country. Brown brothers and sisters who cry, "Si se puede," with sweaty, homeless hands. He's buried in the minds of weary soldiers who refuse to obey orders that betray freedom. He's buried in the tears of the kind mothers whose children died in the Middle East or in Florida. He's buried in the outrage of grieving fathers who buried their war-dead sons as this blue-blooded president nixed press coverage of their return. 1,000 flag-covered caskets are bad for the president's image, you know. He's buried in the insult of families bathed in sorrow who have not seen their callous president attend one funeral of our over 1,000 killed. Crazy Horse is buried in the brave hearts of men As Dr. King said, who fight injustice anywhere, knowing it affects justice everywhere. Crazy Horse is buried in the smiles of brilliant women who live, love, and work equally with men. Great warrior Crazy Horse is buried in the sweet breasts of slumbering children who trust us to create a world that someday will allow them to awaken under warm blankets, with stomachs strangers to hunger, with minds secure because Mama and Papa are living in full democracy, free from violent oppression. I know where Crazy Horse is buried. I know where he is buried. He is buried in you. You said 7 minutes, all right. I wanted to do this one. I'm sorry. I don't want to embarrass anybody. I didn't want to embarrass anybody at all. I just, a very short poem. I wanted to read this. I read this. This is one of my students in juvenile hall. I was fired last week, so I won't be a teacher there anymore. But this student listened to a story I told about my first day in Vietnam. They gave me a rifle I didn't know how to fire, and they put me in a front bunker in Saigon in front of this hotel where the Navy billets were waiting for their assignments. And they told me I had 3 orders to follow. First, if any Vietnamese stopped in front of the hotel, I was to shout, Didi. In Vietnamese, that means get out of here. I said, what do I do if they don't leave? He said, then you shout another term that means get the F out of here. So I'm being taught to curse as my first, to curse at Vietnamese people as my first job to protect democracy. And I said, well, what do I do if they don't leave then? He said, well, then you shoot them. And so it's a 4-hour watch, and about 2 hours through the watch, this old Vietnamese grandpa, he was about this big, didn't even weigh 100 pounds. He was skin and bone, he was unarmed, he was starving to death, and he parked his bicycle in front of the hotel. And I said, you know, Dee, and he, just a minute. So then I cursed at him, and he went, well, just a minute, like, I'm leaving. And I picked up my rifle, and I did not sign up to go to Vietnam to kill somebody's starving grandfather. And so I just put in my rifle at him, and I screamed, and then he got scared and went away. And so this young man, who's supposed to be a thug, I told them a warrior is someone who follows their heart. A soldier is someone who follows orders. And when I got back to the reservation, I was told, that's when you became a warrior, because you didn't kill that day. And so Zimmerman's not a warrior. A soldier obeys, a warrior knows. A soldier does, a warrior does not. A soldier destroys, a warrior protects. A soldier will, a warrior won't. Thank you for listening.